안녕하십니까. 저는 꿈꾸는 몽상가입니다. 현재 시각 국내시 08분 12초 13초 지나고 있습니다. 오늘은 아침형 인간도전 100일 프로젝트 16일차입니다. 오늘은 성공을 했습니다. 아침형 인간이 되려면 제가 강조하는 게 크게 5가지가 있죠. 1번 목표의식이 있어야 되고, 두 번째 전날 12시 전에 반드시 취침해야 된다. 그래야지 새벽에 일찍 일어날 수 있다. 세 번째, 찬물에 세수를 해야 된다. 오늘도 역시 일어나자마자 찬물에 세수를 했습니다. 그러니 정신이 번쩍 드는군요. 그리고 네 번째, 커피 또는 차 한 잔을 해라. 커피 또는 차 한 잔을 마심으로써 몽롱해진 정신을 맑은 정신으로 만들자는 거고, 5번째는 1번 목표의식부터 4번 커피 또는 차 한 잔을 마시는 것을 매일 반복, 습관화, 시스템화하자는 내용입니다. 저희가 단순히 아침에 일찍 일어나는 아침형 인간도 쉽지 않은데, 아무튼 뭐든지 어떤 습관을 들이려면 누구는 일주일, 누구는 한 달 이렇게 얘기를 하지만, 저는 아침형 인간도전 100일 프로젝트를 지금 현재 진행하고 있고, 현재 16일차를 진행하고 있습니다. 그 중간에 성공했던 날도 있고 실패한 날도 있는데, 그거는 개의치 않고 제가 100일간 계속 도전을 해보겠습니다. 제 스스로 어떤 결과가 발생하는지 한번 체킹을 해보겠습니다. 커피포트에 물이 끓어서 이제 커피를 잠깐 준비하러 가겠습니다. 여러분, 차 한잔 하시죠. 곰돌이도 차 한잔. 냄새 좀 맡고. 아무튼 오늘이 아침형 인간 100일 프로젝트 16일차인데요. 오늘은 새로운 걸 한번 도전해 보려고 합니다. 우선은 오늘은 성경의 잠언 한 장을 읽고, 그리고 두 번째는 스티브잡스의 스탠포드 연설을 한번 좀 읽어보겠습니다. 잠언 16장 한번 읽어보겠습니다. 마음의 경영은 사람에게 있어도 말의 응답은 여호와께로부터 나오느니라. 사람의 행위가 자기 보기에는 모두 깨끗하 해도 여호와는 심령을 감찰하시느니라. 너희 행사를 여호와께 맡기라. 그리하면 네가 경영하는 것이 이루어지리라. 여호와께서 온갖 것을 그 쓰임에 적당하게 지으셨나니 악인도 악한 날에 적당하게 하셨느니라. 무릇 마음이 교만한 자를 여호와께서 미워하시나니 피차 손을 잡을지라도 벌을 면치 못하리라. 인자와 진리로 인하여 죄악이 속하게 되고 여호와를 경외함으로 말미암아 악에서 떠나게 되느니라. 사람의 행위가 여호와를 기쁘시게 하면 그 사람의 원수라도 그와 더불어 화목하게 하시느니라. 적은 소득이 공의를 겸하며 많은 소득이 불의를 겸한 것보다 나으니라. 사람이 마음으로 자기의 길을 계획할지라도 그의 걸음을 인도하시는 이는 여호와시니라. 하느님의 말씀이 왕의 입술에 있은즉 재판할 때에 그의 입이 그르치지 아니하리라. 공평한 저울과 접시 저울은 여호와의 것이요 주머니 속의 저울추도 다 그가 지으신 것이니라. 악을 행하는 것은 왕들이 미워할 바니 이는 그 부자가 공의로 말미암아 굳게 섬이니라. 의로운 입술은 왕들이 기뻐하는 것이요 정직하게 말하는 자는 그들의 사랑을 입느니라. 왕의 진노는 죽음의 사자들과 같아도 지혜로운 사람은 그것을 쉬게 하리라. 왕의 희색은 생명을 뜻하나니 그의 은택이 늦은 비를 내리는 구름과 같으니라. 지혜를 얻는 것이 금을 얻는 것보다 얼마나 나은고 명철을 얻는 것이 은을 얻는 것보다 더욱 나으니라. 악을 떠나는 것은 정직한 사람의 대로니 자기의 길을 지키는 자는 자기의 영혼을 보존하느니라. 교만은 패망의 선봉이요 거만한 마음은 넘어짐의 앞잠이니라. 겸손한 자와 함께하여 마음을 낮추는 것이 교만한 자와 함께하여 탈취물을 나누는 것보다 나으니라. 상과 말씀에 주의하는 자는 좋은 것을 얻나니 여호와를 의지하는 자는 복이 있느니라. 마음이 지혜로운 자는 명철하다 일컬음을 받고 입이 선한 자는 남의 학식을 다하게 하느니라. 명철한 자에게는 그 명철이 생명의 샘이 되거니와 미련한 자에게는 그 미련한 것이 징계가 되느니라. 지혜로운 자의 마음 그의 입술을 슬기롭게 하고 또 그의 입술에 지식을 다하느니라. 선한 말은 꿀송이 같아서 마음에 달고 뼈에 양약이 되느니라. 어떤 길은 사람이 보기에 바르나 필경은 사망의 길이니라. 고되게 일하는 자는 식욕으로 말미암아 애쓰나니 이는 그의 입이 자기를 독촉함이니라. 불량한 자는 악을 꾀하나니 그 입술에는 맹렬한 불 같은 것이 있느니라. 패역한 자는 다툼을 일으키고 말쟁이는 친한 벗을 이간하느니라. 강포한 사람은 그 이웃을 깨워 좋지 아니한 길로 인도하시느니라. 눈짓을 하는 자는 패역한 일을 도모하며 입술을 닫는 자는 악한 일을 이루느니라. 백발은 용화의 면류관이라 공의로운 길에서 얻으리라. 노하기를 더디한 자는 용사보다 낫고 자기의 마음을 다스리는 자는 성을 빼앗는 자보다 나으니라. 제비는 사람이 뽑으나 모든 일을 작정하기는 여호와께 있느니라. 잠언 16장을 읽었고요. 이 중에서 제 마음에 좀 더 다시 한번 읽고 싶다라는 구절을 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. 16장 2절 사람의 행위가 자기 보기에는 모두 깨끗하여도 여호와는 심령을 감찰하시느니라. 3절 너희 행사를 여호와께 맡기라. 그리하면 네가 경영하는 것이 이루어지리라. 그리고 9절 16장 9절 사람이 마음으로 자기의 길을 계획할지라도 그의 걸음을 인도하시는 이는 여호와시니라. 그리고 16장 16절 지혜를 얻는 것이 금을 얻는 것보다 얼마나 나은고 명철을 얻는 것이 은을 얻는 것보다 더욱 나으니라. 그리고 22절 명철하는 자에게는 그 명철이 생명의 샘이 되느니와 미련한 자에게는 그 미련한 것이 징계가 되느니라. 그리고 16장 32절 노하기를 더디하는 자는 용사보다 낫고 자기의 마음을 다스리는 자는 성을 빼앗는 자보다 나으니라. 예, 이 구절들을 한 번씩 더 읽었습니다. 이 구절들을 제 마음에 새기고 생각하고 실천할 수 있는 하루가 될 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 이제 다음은 스티브잡스의 스탠포드 연설에서 등장하는 내용들을 잠깐 보여드리겠습니다. 예, 스티브잡스의 스탠포드 연설에서 등장하는 The Last Earth Catalog, 마지막 지구 전체 지구 캐탈로그. 그리고 미국 어느 시골의 풍경인데요. 그 내용 중에 Stay hungry, stay foolish. 여러분들도 잘 아시죠? Stay hungry, stay foolish. 네, 이 내용은 여러분도 잘 아시다시피 항상 늘 배고파라, 늘 어리석어라, 그런 내용입니다. 그러면 스티브 잡스가 스탠포드 대학에서 연설했던 그 영어 원문을 한번 읽어보는 시간을 가지겠습니다. 발음은 별로지만 제가 한번 읽고 생각해보는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 예, 이제 시작하겠습니다. I am honored to be with you today and your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it, no big deal, just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of college after the first 6 months, but then stuck around as a driving for another 18 months or so before I relocated. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, weak college graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoptions. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by a college graduate, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted to go. So my parents, who were on a waiting list got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My wife's mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only rented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 7 years later, I did go to college, but I naively chose college that was almost as expensive as Stanford, and all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted with my life and no idea how college was going to help me figure out. And here I was spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could have stopped taking the required class that didn't interest me and began dropping the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have the dorm rooms, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned to cook bottles for 5 cents deposit to buy food with, and I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I love it, and much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be a fried street later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best college instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every throw was beautifully hand-calligraphed. Because I had to drop out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans-serif typefaces. I learned about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations. I learned about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can capture. I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computers, it all came back to me, and we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with a beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on the single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts, and since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would never drop in on this calligraphy class, and personal computer might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forwards when I was in college, but it was very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the roads will give you the confidence to follow your heart. Even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and they will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved early in life. Was and I, Steve was in and I sorted apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard and in 10 years, apple had grown from just the two of us in our garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We had just released our finest creation, the mechanism a year earlier, and I had just done 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as after grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our vision of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had pulling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. So at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation turn us down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with Dave Fackers and Bob Lois and tried to apologize for the screwing up so badly. I was very publicly failures, and I even thought about running away from the belly. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I had been rejected, but I was still loved, and so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting pulled from Apple was the best thing that could ever have happened to me. The happiness of being successful was replaced by a lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything, it freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixars, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next. I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lauren and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was offer tasting medicine, but I guess the face needed. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose your face. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You got to find what you love. And that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to be a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with the matter of your heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. my third story is about this. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you're most certainly right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choice in life. Because almost everything, all external expectation or pride or pure embarrassment or fairy tales, these things just fall away. In the face of death, living only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancers. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctor told me this is almost a certain type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order. Use this doctor's for people to die. It means to try to tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it'll be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbye. I'll leave that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestine, put a needle into my pancreas and cut a few cells from the tumors. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctor started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form from a pancreatic cancer that is curable with the surgery. I had the surgery and thankfully I'm fine now. This was the classic. I've been facing death, and I hope it's the classic I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but pure intellect concept. No one wanna die, even people who wanna go to heaven don't wanna die to get there, and then that is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it, and that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life-change agent. It clears out the earth to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you, but someday not long from now, will gradually become the earth and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it is quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the result of other people thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bible of my generation. It was created by a fellow named George Brand not far from here in Mellon Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 1960s, before personal computer and desktop publishing, so it was made with a typewriter, scissor, and polite camera. It was sort of like Google in paperback form. 35 years before Google came along, it was idealistic and overflowing with little and great notions. Stuart and his team brought several issues of the Whole Earth catalog, and then, when it had run its course, they brought a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back of the final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you're so adventurous. Beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their final message at the sign-off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself, and now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you very much. Stay hungry, stay foolish. 항상 갈망하라, 무식하게 나아가라. 이상으로 꿈꾸는 몽상가였습니다. 즐거운 하루 되세요.